Good evening, my name is Thomas Trask, and this is my presentation on Ordinal Behavioral Classification of Multimodal Student Online Course Interaction. Analyzing student interaction patterns for online courses is as old as online courses. Unfortunately, there's still a gap in the research analyzing apples-to-apples comparison between on-campus and MOOC-style instances of the same course. Georgia Tech offers a number of courses for students both on-campus and MOOC-style via the edX platform. This allows researchers to directly compare student interaction and performance of both modalities for individual courses. Within MOOC research, there exists student interaction paradigms that can inform researchers on effective interventions for at-risk students. Through researching the edX clickstream logs for the GT1301 Intro to Programming course, I seek to find out whether these interaction patterns exist within the on-campus student body, whether these classifications are relatively consistent across modalities, how the students in each modality classification performs in the class, and whether modality impacts student performance within these classifications. If the classifications are applicable to on-campus students, then interventions developed for MOOCs may be applicable to similarly performing on-campus students. This study uses the following design. 80 million edX course interaction log records were grouped into a usable set of student data that represented what course content the student interacted with and how they interacted with it. Students were then categorized based on a series of well-established MOOC student interaction paradigms. If there was an overlap in student interactions between the modalities and the performance was consistent between the modalities, we can then attempt to apply previously defined MOOC-style interventions for their on-campus counterparts. There are key differences between the on-campus program and the MOOC-style program, and they attract a different set of students. The on-campus program requires admission to Georgia Tech and admission into the class, costs a standard Georgia Tech tuition, and comes with the base to entry consistent with admission to Georgia Tech. The class does count towards a degree, provides Georgia Tech technical support, and operates on a 15-week cadence. The MOOC, in contrast, is available to anybody. There is no minimum technical or academic requirement to enroll in the course, is very low cost compared to Georgia Tech tuition, results in a completion certificate, and can be used on resumes. It has no individual support and can be completed at a student's own pace. We would expect these differences in modality to result in a different distribution in the set of student classifications if they exist. Because anybody can sign up for the MOOC-style course, it should represent a wider breadth of student skill, engagement, and ability. A final key difference between the MOOC and the on-campus course instance is that the on-campus course represents 1,600 students and 400,000 events, where the MOOC instance represents 47,000 students and 15 million user events, 2 orders of magnitude higher. The results show that the student usage paradigms do exist across both modalities. Looking at the student engagement classification chart, we see that student interaction patterns are present in both modalities. We see a larger breadth of student representation in the MOOC-style courses. While most on-campus students fall under the study or student paradigm, there are more normally engaged MOOC students engaged in most but not all of the course content, probably due to the on-campus syllable requirements. MOOC-specific paradigms of no-shows and voyeurs are also present on-campus, but in much lower quantities. If we look at the average first problem set score, we see that the breadth of performance for MOOC students is much wider than that of on-campus students. The highs are just as high between the modalities, but the lows are significantly lower for the MOOC students. This performance can narrow significantly while looking at the student final score. If we look at the average score R, which represents the final score of a problem relative to the number of attempts for the problem, we see that the average number of attempts is higher for online students than it was for on-campus students, meaning that it took online students longer to get through the course problem set than it did for the students, which makes sense considering that the students who engage with MOOCs tend to have less technical background than the average Georgia Tech student. In contrast, MOOC students tended to finish the course within 2 weeks, with a significant drop-off in student engagement past that if the student did not finish the course. What we can conclude is that the student paradigms that were developed to represent MOOC students' interactions are applicable to on-campus students. The performance gap between classification tracks similarly between modalities. While categorical performance between modalities favors on-campus students, the difference in performance between paradigms is consistent across modalities. The student classifications, by and large, seemed like a useful tool to help identify students' usage patterns. In addition, because the on-campus student cadence is slower than that of MOOCs, it should allow for more long-term interventions. Because of this, we can use the potentially at-risk and at-risk student classifications for the MOOC-style course to help identify the on-campus instances of these student groups to help design interactions.